I'm Jim Check. You're watching Colona Now in our ongoing election coverage for the upcoming provincial election on October 19th. Big day. I have with me NDP candidate for Kelowna Mission, Harpreet Badohal. Did I get that right, Kelowna?
Yeah, and that's good. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Yeah.
Thank you for coming in, and thank you for allowing us time. Again, 30 minutes. These interviews are about 30 minutes. Last 5 minutes is for you. We're going to kind of the first question is, why did you decide to run? You and I were talking prior, and we have a similar background. I worked in a mine site, as did you. So why did you decide to leave the workforce and kind of put your hat in the ring for the political ring?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I am an occupational health and safety professional. And just like you said, you worked in the mines. I have also inspected mines and all type of workplaces when I was working with the Ministry of...
So you're kind of like the safety guy at mine sites and kind of thing? You went and inspected the safety programs, I take it, right?
Yeah, I'm more like a health professional, because I look for exposures to physical, chemical, biological agents which could have the potential to make workers sick or get diseases. So I work to prevent that. That's what I do. I'm an occupational hygienist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
by profession. Yeah.
And then, I'm working at a mine site. Obviously, lots of reagents and chemicals and all that kind of stuff in the process of mining, right? So.
Oh yes, depending upon what the mining processes are, what type of mine it is, we have been looking into, say, for example, diesel particulate matter, which could be the exhaust from those vehicles which are operated under the mine sites, and all those types. There's a whole range.
There's a lot of stuff going on underground. People don't realize that what's underground is almost like a small city, right? Yes. Like there's lights, traffic lights sometimes, all kinds of stuff, right?
Oh, yes.
Pretty scary down there, too, actually.
Oh, yes. So. It could be many levels of mines as well, yeah.
I know. Again, why leave that, and why decide to venture into provincial politics?
Yes, Jim. Basically, my working with government was a service. It was a service to people where I was trying to protect worker health from occupational hazards, right? I wanted to expand the sphere of that service. And being a Sikh, one of my prime commitment is seva, which is a selfless public service. So joining politics, I see it as a venue for doing that selfless service to the larger community, towards the people I do not know. So having accumulated good experience in policy and government, so I thought maybe this is the next step forward for me to move onto that journey. Yeah.
And with that said, why the NDP party versus the Conservative Party, or what was prior to this was a BC United Party?
Yes. No, because my values, they align more with the BC NDP. Just like I have been working hard to take care of my family, so what I have observed is that the BC NDP government has been working hard to take care of British Columbians and day-to-day regular British Columbians in last 7 or 8 years. So I have observed it closely. I have seen the work of NDP MLA from Vern and Harvinder Sandhu and how great work she did in last 4 years. So I was really inspired, and as I said, alignment of my values, so it was a natural choice.
So the Kelowna ridings, Lake Country, Kelowna, and there's two now, a split riding, Kelowna Mission and Kelowna Centre, and then Kelowna Lake Country. They've traditionally been more BC United or BC Liberal, or I guess in more, even in federal, more of a conservative kind of leaning jurisdiction. What do you think your chances are with the NDP party?
Jim, we need to remember what wise Master Oogway said in Kung Fu Panda, that yesterday is a history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. So this gift, it is an opportunity.
I like that.
So today is a gift, today is an opportunity. And that's where I'm looking at, irrespective of what it has been, what it was in the past. I'm looking at what are the challenges in this riding as of today, and how I can connect with the residents of this riding and do my best to solve the issues, the problems here.
The Conservative Party, and when the BC United was there, really point to the record of the NDP the past 7 years. They've had the wheel, and they're saying that David Eby has done a really bad job and that we're in a really bad spot. And they say that he doesn't deserve to hold the wheel anymore. What do you say to that?
Criticism, it is always part of the politics, and I just see that as a criticism. And when you look at the type of the policies NDP has been following in all spheres, whether you start from the healthcare, whether you start with the housing development. I think the BC government and especially our Premier David Eby has been doing a great job. If you see in the last year only, they hired close to 1,000 doctors and close to 7,000 nurses. And since 2023, they have connected close to 400,000 people with doctors. You know, the reason why I'm giving these numbers is because they are just not numbers, they are individuals. We are fighting here, not only in British Columbia, but all over Canada. We are fighting with the shortage of healthcare professionals. We are fighting with all those challenges which are coming from global inflation and the post-pandemic period. And here we have a government, here we have a leader who is kind of going full throttle to help the people of British Columbia. So when I look into that criticism, it doesn't really has much basis other than just a simple criticism. But that being said, I'm not saying that there are no problems. There are issues, there are problems which we are facing on the healthcare especially. We are facing issues with the housing, and the biggest one which I'm hearing at the door from people, it is about the affordability, like how difficult things has been. There are challenges, but as a leader, I see that my leader is really working seriously on it.
Yeah, so David Eby has pivoted from the carbon tax. He said if Pierre Poilievre wins government, that he will axe the tax in British Columbia. And that is clearly a different stance than when Pierre Poilievre challenged him about a year ago on the tax. And energy is one of the biggest drivers in everything we do, like it's in all the food we do. And obviously we live in a very large landmass nation, so we have to truck everything. And then, the tractors, trains, and trucks all burn diesel. And that's you should look at shipping way bills, you'll see a carbon tax added to most things, and obviously that's in the price of everything. So David Eby has now said that he would pivot on that. What do you think of that, from being a steadfast proponent of the carbon tax to all of a sudden just like, okay, I'm going to listen?
You know what, Jim, we have to see it in a context. And the context is the reality of today. Now, carbon tax, what basically is a carbon tax? So sometimes I feel that this term carbon tax has become more prominent, whereas the real issue is the climate change. The real issue is the climate change. Real issue is not carbon tax. So carbon tax was a tool. It was a tool in the toolbox to tackle what? To tackle the climate change. And if you look at the Clean BC plan of the British Columbia government, it has 159 points. I can show you right now on my computer. There are all.
I think British Columbia is on record as being one of the cleanest provinces in Canada and in the world. You know, I mean, it's a very, 98% of our electrical energy comes from hydroelectric, very clean. So the question then would be, why do we continue to punish British Columbians with a carbon tax when British Columbia is already leading the way?
Well, the British Columbia government made this change because of their dynamism, because of they were looking at the realities on the ground, and when the affordability is becoming one important issue here. So if they have changed a stance on the carbon tax, it doesn't mean that they have given up the
climate change. No, I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying they continued to punish British Columbians until it became an election issue, which is, I think, about time that people looked at it and said, hey, it's actually hurting people to pump. And I did interview Sonia Furstenau, the leader of the Green Party, and she said the same thing. We're directing that tax at the wrong person. That should be at the wellhead.
Well, right now, even if the changes have been made into the carbon tax, but the carbon tax, it still stands for the big polluters, you know, and what is proposed to be removed, it is to help everyday British Columbians, just like the David Eby government has done with the insurance premiums, like the car insurance premiums. They cut it down by $500, and since 2021, they have paid like $520 back into the pocket of the people who drive car, and they have frozen those rates. So that is just one way of putting money back into people's pocket, like MSP.
So you bring up ICBC. Yeah. Thank you for that. A lot of British Columbians would argue, why can't we have private insurance as in additional? I know we can get private insurance on the additional insurance, but we can't get it on the basic insurance. Why is BC not allowing private competition into the insurance game?
Well, if we look at the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, the way it is working, you know, it is working proficiently, and it is working on a positive direction now. It's working in a positive direction. What it was under the previous government and what it is now, you can exactly see the difference, and anybody can see the difference. When we have an organization working so well and helping the British Columbians, so is there really a pressure to bring in the privatization in that particular direction? Why not to improve the system which is already in place? Why not to make investments and make it more helpful to the people of British Columbia, make it more efficient, other than going into different directions and spending our energy?
But isn't competition healthy though? Like if ICBC is that good, then how would competition hurt it?
No, I'm not an expert in insurance. I cannot tell you about that, right? I cannot tell you that, that how that will be. But definitely, I would say that the Insurance Corporate British Columbia and has gone a long way and come up a long way, and now it stands where it is. The rates are frozen for a couple of years. It's good for especially new drivers. Yeah.
So Gavin Dew was in the other day, and one of his harshest criticisms of the NDP party was rural or non-lower mainland areas seem to be a second thought. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't get the attention that we deserve. And if we look at the healthcare closures across BC, most of them are happening in like Merritt last weekend, and I think all over 30 closures in the past 18 months. And all over BC, we're seeing these. Sometimes people are being told that they can drive up to 400 kilometers to access emergency care. And I think that for most British Columbians, that should be unacceptable.
Yeah, it is unacceptable. Honestly speaking, I see myself very clearly. It is unacceptable. It should not be happening like this. It is very difficult for anybody who needs a medical care and they need to travel from one region to other region to get them. The medical care should be available. It should be provided right where the residents they are. Absolutely, there is no question about that, right? But we have to also keep in mind that we are coming out of a pandemic period. And what we are dealing with here is with a shortage of professionals, shortage of medical and the health professionals. That is exactly why the government, you see, they have announced adding about 129 seats to the UBC Medical School, and they are opening up new medical school. And not only that, you will also see that in last year only, they have licensed about 900 international doctors to work in Canada, in British Columbia, in Canada here, right? And not only that, about 6,000 international nurses. They were also, there are different kind of pathways in which professionals are put into, and then they can get certified. All those efforts, they are directed towards the same purpose, same direction, so that we can have more professionals. They could work in these outlying areas, and they could help those residents over there. Right?
One of the policies that Pierre Poilievre has stated that he would kind of like incorporate a Red Seal program so that nurses and doctors can work across provinces without having to get certified in each province. Is that something the NDP would consider as well? Like, because right now, if you're a nurse in Alberta, you have your license there, but you have to reapply for a license here in BC.
See, our government, NDP government has worked a lot in cutting red tape, just like they did in the case of housing. There was a lot of red tape and blockages so that we could develop housing faster. And I do not know about what a federal leader is saying and what its implication could be here. But I think we have a Red Seal program. Probably you're mentioning to some other, but
that's in the mining industry, like all the trades are Red Seal, right? So those like the the geologists and all those guys, they can work across the nation, right, with the Red Seal program, right?
Yeah, just like I said that, yes, there have been efforts about that to a kind of like the future trades skills grant. Right. That's a great initiative by the government of British Columbia to anyone, who wants to sharpen their skills for the jobs which are coming in the future. That's the same. Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing a few of the ministers of the NDP, including the Jobs Minister and including the Forest Minister. But we've reached out numerous times to Adrian Dix. There's been calls from Surrey doctors, from even in Kelowna and stuff like that Adrian Dix, we've asked numerous times for an interview, that he won't be held accountable and that there needs to be a leadership change in that minister. Do you not think that ministers hold important positions, and especially a health minister, especially during COVID there, where we were, basically run by the health minister for like 3 or 4 years, should they not be doing interviews with media?
See, what I feel is that Minister Dix, he has shown a great leadership during the period of pandemic.
But doesn't it lack leadership not to be held accountable, though?
Well, I cannot say to that, that why you are not being able to arrange an interview with him.
It's not just us, though. Like he doesn't do interviews, right?
Well, that is a question for his office.
Well,
How
we've
can
asked.
how can I answer that
No,
question?
I'm just saying, like in general, if you're going to run and say you're successful, will you continue to do interviews? And everybody wants to do interviews when we're running, but will you continue to do interviews and be held accountable by the media and the public?
Well, Jim, here I'm sitting with you doing this
yeah.
interview, and yes, if you call me in the future also, I would be here for the interview. Not only that, that is one of the things when I told you about myself putting my name forward for Seva and selfless service. That is possible only if I am in touch with the everyday people. That is what my purpose is. So you will see me not sitting in an office or not in a chair. You will see me every day. I'm outside, talking to people and going to the area where the development is taking place. And if anybody gives me a call, I would rather endeavor to go to that person rather than calling somebody to my office. You will see me as that type of animal.
So you would represent Kelowna Mission if successful. What are the issues do you think that are most important to Kelowna right now that you would kind of like take to Victoria and fight for this area?
Well, there are a number of issues as I'm hearing and learning as I go for door knocking. And one of the issues that comes up again and again is the thing of the climate change, and how it is impacting our local economy and our tourism here. Right. So there are a lot of concerns.
You're talking about wildfires mostly, kind of.
Yeah, wildfire mostly, because with the wildfire, it's a very difficult thing for people, when they have to evacuate, and not only that,
affects our tourism, affects a whole bunch of things, and plus people lose their homes.
When they evacuate, and also when the smoke is suspended in the air for a longer period of time, and you are inhaling that smoke, so it's very difficult, And yes, there have been issues related to that, and people have been discussing about like what are the strategies, what are the steps. The government of BC has already been taking those steps. There have been proposed plans, and I plan to carry it forward. As myself, I have an MSc in botany. I used to teach plant sciences outside Canada. Not only that, I have another MSc as an environmental and occupational health. So I deeply and I totally understand the issues, the environmental issues. Right. Yeah.
So I've done a lot of interviews, including with Bruce Ralston, the Forest Minister, and with David Eby, and with forestry companies, and with some of the forestry representatives and associations. They're very frustrated. Forestry, our second largest industry, is according to Rustad, shambles, and Kevin Falcon was like tragic, and there's a lot of, and according to the forest companies, we have the highest stumpage rates in North America. Forestry is booming in Alberta. Ours is on a decline, losing about tens of thousands of jobs, and they're also saying they're not invited to the table when we talk about wildfires and forest, because if an active forest and a younger forest would lead to less forest fires, and they believe that they should be allowed to sit at the table when we talk about wildfires.
I think we're discussing about two issues here. One is you're talking about the wildfires, and one you're talking about issues which are going on in the...
They kind of integrate, though, because the forestry companies are saying if they could cut more logs, if they could access more fiber, the forests would be younger, and we could actually have more interface areas, and where even if there is a fire, it wouldn't affect the cities as much in the homes.
No, I'm not an expert in forestry, but I can definitely tell you that I did read that the industry, have been invited by the ministry to give on their feedback and provide information about the changes they want. The process has been going, and we have to keep in mind we are also going through a period of global inflation, and that is what is also affecting the way things are difficult in affordability, industry-wise, and the jobs overall. Yeah.
It seems to be that we're also, I'm going to switch gears a bit, that the NDP and the Conservatives are fighting kind of a negative campaign, one calling radical left, the other one calling extremist right. Is that productive when we should be talking about policy, what's good for British Columbians, as opposed to like each side kind of like lobbing kind of hate bombs at each other?
I don't think the NDP is doing a negative campaign. I think we are doing a very positive campaign.
No, I think both people, I've heard it come when I do interviews. I did an interview with Ravi Parmar, I think, and he compared John Rustad to an extremist like Donald Trump, like they put labels on. I just think it's more productive to British Columbians if we talk policy. Would you not agree with that?
I would say that if there have been certain instances which you are referring to, I do not know what those instances are. But if we look at the policy in general, our motto is the action for you. So basically, what we are going back to British Columbians is we are telling them the type of action we have taken in the past and how we want to continue doing that hard work and how we want to continue doing that work. So we are basically asking votes from people on the basis of work we are doing and the changes we are making. So I think that's a pretty much a positive.
And I'm not saying either side's like innocent in this, right? I'd say that, like I said, it's both sides, and I just don't think it's productive to British Columbians in general to be doing that as opposed to this is because voters get a chance like once every 4 years, right? This is their chance, and every party comes out and they start, like doling out candy basically, right? You're going to get this, you're going to get that, you're going to get this, and they're listening. This is the time for British Columbians to really try to understand what it is that they're going to get. Because you're asking for leadership for 4 years, right? You're asking to run the province for 4 years. And that this is the time for voters to say, what's in it for me?
Yeah, when I go to door to door and I discuss, I talk with people, I try to tell them that this is what the government of British Columbia has done in the case of healthcare. This is what they have done with the housing and why we are taking those steps. And I try to tell them that how these are resulting from a long-term underfunding, and then we had a pandemic, and then the global inflation going on, and how the steps, the means, the policies we are adopting to fight all those challenges. That's what I try to explain it to them, and that is exactly, I think, where the focus should be, and that's what I see everybody in my team doing. Yeah.
Right. One of the issues even brought forward by one of your co-candidates, Loyal Wooldridge, in Kelowna here, he's running in Kelowna Centre, is tourism is hurt pretty bad in Kelowna this year. Tourism is down. And Renee Merrifield, a current MLA, has said that the Airbnb policy has been a big factor in hurting the tourism in Kelowna. Loyal Wooldridge actually came out and said that as well, and said there needs to be a made in Kelowna solution because there was areas, and him sitting as a city councillor, that they've designated as tourism areas that need to be exempted from this one size fits all kind of like stature. I did interview David Eby on that as well, the premier, and he said he was willing to listen, but then at the end of that, he said that they're really not willing to change that policy. Would you fight for Kelowna tourism in that regard, or how would you see that whole thing?
Yeah, how I see that whole thing is without any particular reference to what person A said or what person B said. What I see is that why that policy was put in place, in the first place, right? So that was big, so as to fight with the availability, lesser availability of the rental. Because the housing was being used for the short-term rentals. So the idea was to free more housing so that it could be available for the resident to live long-term in one particular area. For example, I was just at a conference which was, I think it was conducted by your company here meeting, and there was somebody from Accelerate Okanagan, and they were telling that how in Okanagan itself we have 787 IT-related companies, and they employ something like 30,000 people. And those companies, 65 of those companies, if I'm not wrong, they're planning to expand next year. Now, when they're planning to expand, it means that they want to hire more people, and they want to hire more technologists, more specialists, and those resources would be moving into this area to live in this area, and they would be able to live and work for those companies only if there are places for them to live long term, right? So that is the real need. That's the real need. Now going back to the point, what you're saying is the idea is to keep the housing out of the speculation and make it available to people. Right?
So the argument that's been made though is that the city of Kelowna has designated certain areas, and not many of them, designated certain areas as tourism related. People invested their money, and these are not large corporations. I also did an interview with the Airbnb regional, the person in charge of Canada. And it shows that most of these Airbnbs are owned by, they own one Airbnb that's not large corporations. And then these people now have made an investment, and then the government has basically told them that it won't cash flow for them at that rate. And then so they're losing money, and it's hurting small businesses and small investors as opposed to large corporations and that. Like it seems to kind of go against what the NDP kind of believes in, where they're supposed to be standing up for the working class.
I think, as far as I understand, I think the province of British Columbia, it allows you to have a short-term rental in your primary occupancy, in a primary home, and that's a requirement by the city of Kelowna, on the top of the provincial requirement, to not allow it, because and they do have their own reasons, and that is a low vacancy rate, which was even less than I think 2% or something. So they're trying to reach a certain level of vacancy rate before they could go forward with that. So I mean, that tells us the reality of what is on the ground and what is available here.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of discrepancy, and like I said, we don't have a lot of time because we're at the 5-minute mark, and this is your time, so that means I can't keep going on that question. So if you have something that you want to speak directly to the constituents in your riding, this is your chance and opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I just want to say to all your viewers that if you are somebody who believes in green ideology, I want to assure you that I am most committed to the climate action. And my commitment to the climate action is supported by my professional background in that field. And if you are somebody who is a centrist, I want to tell you that I have been a centrist whole my life, and I have never supported any extreme ideologies. So I'm trying to go and knock at as many doors I can. So it is quite possible that I maybe or might not be able to knock at your door. So if you have any questions, you can find information about myself online. And please send me any questions if you have in mind, and I will make sure to get back to you quickly. And please consider me as your candidate, and considering all the work the NDP government, my team has been doing for you, please vote for me.
So you can go to BC NDP website, I think, and you can find Harpreet on there, right?
Yeah, Harpreet, you can find.
You can find on there, and then will there be contact information, like email address and all that stuff?
Even if you just Google my name, Harpreet Badohal.
Because you have a website too, right?
Yeah, so it can come up. There are multiple ways where you can send a message, and the message comes into my inbox, and I'll make sure to reply.
You talk a little bit about green. We have a few minutes left to talk about the green energy. How do we incentivize people as opposed to punish? I know that David Eby has also said that he's going to probably remove the carbon tax if Pierre Poilievre is successful in gaining federal control of the government. What ways can we incentivize people to move into green, solar, EVs, and all that stuff, as opposed to punishing people? Are you more of an incentivizer or a punisher?
No, I'm not any type of punisher. Please, no. What I feel it is very important here is to, I think it has to be two ends. So one is bringing in the awareness, just like I mentioned about education and awareness. That is very important. That part should come right at the school level, at the college level, at the university levels, that where in the time juncture we are. So when we talk about the release of the carbon, increasing temperature, what basically is the climate change and how it is affecting us. So that level of awareness has to be there. Education should be there right from the beginning, at the school level, at the college level. So that's not only that, but it should also go forward, and it should be a part of the societal discussions and the meetings, because we are dealing that situation right now here today, And the other side is the incentives. As I mentioned, if you go to the Clean BC website, there are a number of rebates. Those rebates, it is important to utilize those rebates. It is important to utilize those 159 tools which are in there, and they give a very good pathway forward.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to leave everybody with is KelownaNow has done a really good job in the provincial election. We're running these 30-minute interviews. Kent's done the 5-minute interviews. So you can go on KelownaNow, and you can look up all the candidates, the ones that have done. Jason put up the 5 minutes, then he put up 1 minute. That was a fast 4 minutes. But I urge you, especially families with younger kids, to try to educate them and let them know how important their vote is, and then have them listen to the candidates. Like, listen, and if you're lucky enough to have one come to your door, take a few minutes to listen. Even if you're a conservative, listen to the NDP, and if you're a NDP, listen to the conservative, because we only learn through educating ourselves, right? Instead of just closing the door and say, I don't want to hear it. I think it's through listening that we learn, right? And again, by especially involving our young people and letting them know that this vote is also important for everybody, right? And we should have a high participation rate in this vote. And then whoever gets the steering wheel, then let's hold them accountable, right? That they make promises, let's hold them accountable, and let's try to have a better path for British Columbia.
Absolutely. And I also want to add to that part that I also see that the younger generation, they have a lot more awareness. Like my son is 13 years old, my daughter. So they have a lot of awareness about the climate action, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.